It was an old, sprawling estate known as Ravenswood Manor, perched on a desolate hill outside the small town of Averdark. The manor had been abandoned for decades, shrouded in rumors of hauntings and dark secrets. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the mysterious deaths and disappearances associated with the house, believing it to be cursed. One day, a letter arrived for a group of friends, Lucas, Sarah, Mark, and Emily, inviting them to spend a weekend at Ravenswood Manor. The invitation came from a distant relative of Lucas who had recently inherited the estate and wanted to restore it. Intrigued by the opportunity and the chance to explore the old manor, the friends decided to go despite the ominous stories. As they approached the manor, the sky grew dark and a thick fog enveloped the path. The manor loomed above them, its Gothic architecture casting eerie shadows. The group felt a chill run down their spines, but laughed it off, attributing it to the cold weather and their nerves. Upon entering the manor, they were greeted by an old caretaker named Mr. Hawthorne, who had been taking care of the property for years. He was a gaunt man with piercing eyes that seemed to see through them. "Welcome to Ravenswood Manor," he said in a low, gravelly voice. "The master is away, but you are welcome to explore. Dinner will be served at 8. The friends settled into their rooms, each one uniquely decorated with antique furniture, dusty paintings, and thick velvet drapes. Emily, an aspiring artist, was fascinated by the old portraits that lined the hallways. She felt a strange connection to one painting, a young woman with dark hair and piercing blue eyes, dressed in a Victorian gown. The plaque beneath read Isabella Ravenswood, 1887. As they explored the manor, they discovered hidden passageways and secret rooms. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay, and the floors creaked underfoot. In the library, Mark found an old journal belonging to Isabella Ravenswood. The pages were filled with detailed accounts of her life, her love for a man named Alexander, and her growing fear of something lurking in the shadows. As night fell, the friends gathered in the grand dining hall where Mr. Hawthorne served them a hearty meal. The conversation quickly turned to the manor's history. Mr. Hawthorne revealed that Isabella Ravenswood had died under mysterious circumstances, and her lover, Alexander, had disappeared without a trace. Some believed that Isabella's spirit still roamed the halls, searching for her lost love. After dinner, the group decided to hold a seance in the drawing room, hoping to contact Isabella's spirit. They dimmed the lights, lit candles, and held hands around a table. Sarah, who had a keen interest in the supernatural, led the seance. "Isabella Ravenswood, if you are here, please give us a sign," she called out. For a moment, there was silence. Then the candles flickered, and the temperature in the room dropped sharply. The friends felt a sudden, oppressive presence. The glass on the table began to move, spelling out the words, "Help me." Emily, visibly shaken, asked, "What do you need help with?" The glass moved again, this time spelling out, "Find him." The room grew colder, and a faint sobbing sound filled the air. Lucas suggested they stop the seance, but before they could, the candles blew out, plunging the room into darkness. A sudden, chilling scream echoed through the manor, sending the group into a panic. Determined to find out what was happening, the friends decided to split up and search the manor for any clues about Isabella's fate. Lucas and Mark headed to the attic, while Sarah and Emily explored the basement. The attic was filled with old trunks, dusty furniture, and cobwebs. Lucas found a small box containing letters from Alexander to Isabella, professing his undying love and promising to return to her. Meanwhile, in the basement, Sarah and Emily discovered a hidden chamber behind a false wall. Inside, they found a small altar with a blackened candle and a book of spells. The book contained references to summoning rituals and binding spirits. Sarah, feeling uneasy, suggested they leave, but Emily was drawn to a painting on the wall. It depicted a dark figure cloaked in shadows with red eyes and a malevolent grin. Back in the attic, Lucas and Mark stumbled upon an old diary belonging to Alexander. It detailed his desperate attempts to save Isabella from an evil entity that had cursed the manor. According to the diary, the entity was a malevolent spirit that thrived on fear and despair. Alexander had sought to banish the spirit, but had failed, and it had claimed Isabella's life. As the night wore on, the friends reconvened in the library to share their findings. They realized that the spirit haunting the manor was not Isabella, but the dark entity mentioned in Alexander's diary. The entity had been feeding on the fear and suffering of the Ravenswood family for generations. Determined to end the curse, the group decided to perform the banishment ritual from Alexander's notes. However, as they prepared for the ritual, strange things began to happen. The manor's doors and windows slammed shut, trapping them inside. The temperature plummeted, and they could see their breath in the air. Shadows danced along the walls, and eerie whispers filled the halls. Emily suddenly collapsed, clutching her head and screaming in agony. When she looked up, her eyes were filled with terror. "It's here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's coming for us." Panic set in as the friends realized they were being hunted by the entity. They tried to escape, but the manor seemed to twist and change, trapping them in an endless maze of corridors. The whispers grew louder, turning into mocking laughter. Sarah, trying to stay calm, suggested they return to the drawing room and complete the ritual. As they made their way to the drawing room, the entity manifested in front of them. It was a tall, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes and an aura of malevolence. The air grew thick with an oppressive energy, and the friends felt a crushing weight on their chests. The entity spoke in a voice that seemed to echo from the depths of darkness. "You cannot banish me," it sneered. "I am eternal. I am fear incarnate." Desperate, Lucas began reciting the banishment ritual, his voice shaky but determined. The entity laughed, the sound reverberating through the manor. The shadows around them grew darker, and the temperature dropped even further. Emily, still clutching her head, suddenly screamed, "It's inside me." The friends watched in horror as Emily's eyes turned black and her face twisted into a malevolent grin. The entity had possessed her, using her as a vessel. Emily's voice, now distorted and filled with malice, taunted them. "You cannot save her," it hissed. "She belongs to me now." Mark, overcome with anger and fear, grabbed the book of spells and began chanting a binding spell. The entity screamed in rage, and the room shook violently. The shadows seemed to close in, suffocating them. Sarah, with tears streaming down her face, joined in the chant, her voice steady despite her fear. As they chanted, the entity's grip on Emily weakened. She fell to the ground, gasping for breath. The shadows around them writhed and convulsed. and the air grew thick with the scent of sulfur. The entity let out a final, piercing scream as it was banished from the manor. The manor fell silent, the oppressive energy dissipating. The friends, shaken and exhausted, helped Emily to her feet. Her eyes had returned to normal, but she was pale and trembling. "It's over," Lucas said, his voice barely a whisper. "We did it." Mr. Hawthorne appeared, seemingly unfazed by the events. "The curse is lifted," he said, his voice calm. "You have freed the manor and its spirits. But remember, not all entities can be banished. Some will always find a way back." The friends left Ravenswood Manor the next morning, vowing never to return. They shared their story with the townspeople, who were relieved to hear that the curse had been lifted. However, the friends could never forget the horrors they had faced in the manor. Emily, in particular, was haunted by nightmares of the entity, its mocking laughter echoing in her mind. Years passed, and the friends went their separate ways. The manor, once again abandoned, became a place of legend, a cautionary tale told to children to keep them away from the dark woods. But some nights, when the wind howled through the trees, the locals swore they could see a figure standing in the manor's window, watching, waiting, and deep within the manor, in a forgotten room, an old painting hung on the wall. It was the portrait of Isabella Ravenswood, her eyes now filled with a knowing sadness, as if aware of the darkness that had once plagued her family. Below the painting, a new inscription had appeared, etched in the stone. "Beware the shadows, for they whisper of secrets best left forgotten." The legend of Ravenswood Manor lived on, a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the unknown, and the dangers that lurk in the shadows. And as long as the manor stood, there would always be those who felt its call, drawn to the mysteries and terrors that lay within its ancient walls.